Mr. Bosnich is a consultant and the former executive director of the Serbian Unity Congress.
First of all, Mr. LaRouche, I'm very happy to see you're still in action despite the decades of efforts to silence you. Having been demonized for, unfortunately or fortunately, having Serbian descent, I understand exactly what it means to try and fight for the truth. And I'm very happy that you started out by talking about this as an era of sophistry, and that you took it one step further, because the sophists did mix a little bit of truth with the lies. And you went straight out and said that there is no truth whatsoever, no regard for the truth in this country whatsoever. And now when you talked about the policy, deliberate policy of genocide for Africa, that's the same thing that's being pursued now in Kosovo. There's not a single Jew living in Kosovo today. The Croatian population that was there has been eliminated. The Turks are asking Turkey to protect them from the Albanian extremists. The hill people called Gorani are staying in their villages for fear of being executed if they leave them. And of course, the final target will be the complete elimination of the Serbs from their ancestral homeland. And we've experienced the same kind of closed doors that one of the question askers was discussing earlier. No matter what we say, no matter what issue we raise, it's no, Kosovo has to be independent. So I want to ask you about this illegal effort to separate Kosovo from Serbia as not only an attack on statehood, but an attack on the entire Westphalian order, which you discussed earlier today. And I'd like to ask you for advice. Were you in the situation of Serbia and Russia today, what additional steps could be taken to stop this effort to destroy the entire world order through the issue of independent Kosovo?
Good. Well, first of all, you have Madeleine Hofbright, or otherwise known as Madeleine Halbright or something. And while she was Secretary of State, gave an address in I believe it was in New York City, in honor of the H.G. Wells Association, of which she is a member, and which is her father, who was the teacher of our President Condoleezza Rice, was also a member. And the other key figure to look at in this connection is Holbrooke, who was a key figure in the mess which occurred in the Balkans in the earlier phase of warfare there. Then you have to look back. You have to look back to the policy of the Habsburg Empire and the heritage it passed on to Great Britain. And the history of this whole process, which was a cockpit. And you have to locate this in reality, which means you have to shift your focus somewhat from the points you were making to a different point of focus. Because the British rarely fight their own wars. They get other people to fight each other, as you saw with the 7 Years' War, that sort of thing. Or with the World Wars, so-called World War I and II, as you saw with the effect of the conflict with the Soviet Union, which is already orchestrated in the same way. The same conflict you see orchestrated by the Sykes-Picot Treaty in Southwest Asia, which is still run by the British. The British run that place. They run whole sections of religious bodies and so forth in that region. And now again, since they're trying to start a war with Russia, they go back to the legacy of 1912, and they start a Balkan War. Again, and again, and again. And the Balkan War was used to trigger a war. It was done by a fellow who was dead by that time, the King of England, who organized this thing to have a war between his two nephews, Kaiser Wilhelm II and Nicholas II. These are his nephews, to get them at war against, with the aid of the stupid Kaiser of Austria, who was stupid enough to play this game. So what you're looking at today with Holbrooke and with the legacy of the society, which was Madeline's legacy. She avowed this. The H.G. Wells Society. To understand that, the simplest way to understand that is look at two things. The open conspiracy of Wells and also The Shape of Things to Come, including the movie called The Shape of Things to Come. You see a kind of utopian image of a certain hellish variety. And Holbrook is a part of that. The minute I hear the name Holbrook connected with anything to do with the Balkans, I say the obvious. This is orchestrated. Now, the other thing you have here is you have two kinds of passions, but largely religious passions. I mean, after all, the Serb and Croat populations come from the same origins north of Czechoslovakia, what is now Czechoslovakia. They came down, and on both sides of the river you had a division. The division was declared by the Roman Empire, who split the two sections, so one side is called Croat, the other side is called Serb. They come from the same exact historic background, and very similar backgrounds, except one is technically Orthodox and the other is technically Western. And since that time, as with the Byzantine Empire before then, the way empires are managed is by orchestrating conflicts. Right? And the genius of avoiding empire, avoiding these conflicts, is to find ways to orchestrate the situation to prevent these conflicts from starting. Because once ignited, they are difficult to stop. Now, my first thing is keep Holbrook the hell out of there, and anybody like him. Because they're out to start the war. Not to fight it, but to start it. And the fight, because of the history of the recent Balkan wars, will be hellish if it happens. Therefore, it must not happen. And therefore, there must be a determination by, I hope, our friends and some friends in the U.S. government to understand this. We must not have a new Balkan war. We must have a solution. The solution is going to be difficult to get, but we must organize it. We must organize forces and get agreement on it. We are not going to kill each other anymore. The killing has gone on and on and on. End it. Because you will not win this by war. You have to win this by not war. And convincing people have got to be human to each other. And that's the great challenge. But the problem we have is that I have. We've got these skunks who are out there, chiefly British skunks. Because the British run this. It used to be an Anglo-French extension of the Sykes-Picot, but now it's completely British. They run the thing. And they are out to have a war with Russia, or to get the United States to fight a war with Russia. And also they have a similar design on China. We have a mess in Southwest Asia, which is possible we could bring under control. Because if the Israelis would agree we could have a peace in some of the area. And that peace could be spread because the Israelis no longer have any real interest in fighting that war, because they no longer are an asset to the United States. Therefore, Syria-Israel agreement would not be a Syria-Israel agreement. It would be the opening of the door to a general reorganization of agreements among the nations of the region, which have had more than enough hellish war of Southwest Asia so far, largely orchestrated from Britain and the United States. So this is the kind of situation, and therefore, number one, the important thing is to present the truth of this situation. And the truth of the situation is, what the hell interest do these people have in killing each other? None. Have they killed themselves, a lot of each other already? Yes. How did it happen? Fine. Are we going to continue it or not? Or are we going to lay down conditions which are human conditions for the region? What we need is a regional agreement on really like a Treaty of Westphalia type of agreement in terms